Hi there. Thanks for coming along to our breakfast event to showcase some of our micro-learning speakers around project and program management. We're not quite ready yet. We're still sorting things out, getting the technology up and running so we can all be ready for you. So in the meantime, have a look at a few of these snippets and it'll give you a bit of a taster as to some of the other micro-learning modules that we've got, some of the speakers we've got coming up in store over the next 12 months. Thanks so much. Talk to you soon. Cheers.
Projects in the OGC world, in MSP and Prince world, exist to deliver outputs. And what do we mean by it? PMI calls them deliverables. It's a thing. Usually it means you can have your photograph taken next to it. You know, if you can tap it, it's an output.
Risks and issues on programs.
So when you've got a whole load of things on your risk register, have a look through them and go, what are the causes that we have? What are the big answers to lots of these things? But it's useful to say, am I looking at an effect or a cause when you're looking at the risk register?
Hi. Thanks for coming back. We're still getting the cameras ready. We're still getting everyone positioned so we can do the broadcast really well for you. So look, have a look at a few more of these micro-learning snippets so you get a bit of a taster of what's in store. Again, talk to you soon. Thanks for hanging by. Cheers.
What are the benefits of vaccinating children against flu? Well, presumably it means the kids don't get flu. They can go to school, their exam scores improve, their education improves. They don't give flu to other kids at school. That's good. That's a benefit. It's a measurable improvement. We can measure the amount of days that kids have off school because they do measure it. We can do this stuff.
A team member may say something like, this new project is negatively affecting our team, and that's not being taken into consideration at all. So an active listener could respond by reflecting back. What I'm hearing you say is this new project will have negative consequences for your team. So I'm not parroting back, I'm reflecting back what I'm hearing in my own words.
Hi. Thanks very much again for joining us. Now, we're just showing you a few of these snippets, so you've got a bit of a taster of what the micro-learning is all about. We've got a couple of presenters coming up shortly to speak to you. It's all sort of around the micro-learning for project and program managers. So we're still getting the lights all sorted and getting the microphones on and things like that. So just bear with us for a few more moments and you should be good to go, okay? So we'll definitely be seeing you soon. Cheers.
Project, Program and Portfolio Management Maturity Model, P3M3 Maturity Levels.
So at level 1 maturity, which we call awareness, so there's kind of a process awareness, they are kind of the fun places to work, right? Because every project's exciting for them because they've got no idea what's going to happen.
Establishing an enterprise project management office.
One of the key things is spending a lot of time on problem definition, understanding, and obviously the same for projects, right? What are we actually trying to resolve here? Are we all clear? Are we all agreed? It takes a lot of time to do that.
I don't know. Is this the right cable? I can't work it out. Look, we're going to be just taking a little bit longer to get this ready. We've got a few cables here that we're not quite sure where they're meant to go. But once we've got those in, we'll be up and running. So look, keep enjoying yourself watching these micro learning snippets. They'll no doubt give you a bit of knowledge around project and program management. So yeah, talk to you soon. Cheers.
Ponder this. We typically divide projects into work packages. We divide programs into projects. There's inevitably an overlap. Should I run a big, complicated project with big, complicated work packages? Or should I run a simple program with specific projects in it? One person's big, complicated work package is another person's simple project. And organizations will make different choices.
Multiple diverse infections.
When they scan your temperature, if it was above 37 or something, you were a potentially Ebola carrier. Now, the problem is in a country like Sierra Leone, your humidity is hot. We're right in the midst of malaria season. And then you've got huge HIV cases going on as well.
Kia ora whānau to those in New Zealand, Australia and beyond. Welcome to the CC Learning Networking event. We bring worldwide project professionals to you to share ideas, learnings and experiences in project management. I'm broadcasting from Aotearoa's capital city, Poneke, also known as Wellington. Remember, we have our roadshow launching. In fact, roadshow is finished, in fact. I've just completed it today. I've been to Auckland, I've been to Rotorua, I've been to Tauranga, and now I'm in Wellington, and we finished our last events today. It was pretty exciting. Met lots of people and talked about projects that involved working with iwi, projects that were involved putting bus lanes into cities, and projects that involved complex work going on in our capital city. So this evening I'm broadcasting on a breezy, cool evening. That's been quite nice. Just had dinner, and I warmly welcome Richard Rose, located in Oxford, United Kingdom. Kia ora, Richard. How are you? What's it like in Oxford? Is the sun up yet?
I'm fine. Sun is not up yet, and it has been pelting with rain for the last 24 hours. So, hey, it's UK weather.
Have you got a boat all ready, just in case the flooding gets too bad?
No, I have got my life vest, though, so we're all right.
Oh, good. Okay. Oh, that's good to hear. Oh, fantastic. Well, look, today we're going to be discussing the PRINCE2 Progress chapter in the new PRINCE2 version 7 book, which Richard worked on. For those joining us live, please ask questions via YouTube or LinkedIn chat. Remember to subscribe to our YouTube channel and LinkedIn channels for future notifications. And remember to continue the conversation and post messages online and at your workplace. Okay, it would help us if you shared this event to promote it for next time. So Richard, tell us how you were approached to do the authorship. Was it sort of deep, dark in the night, or was there a little bit more transparency than that?
It was interesting. I was minding my own business, just sort of semi-retired, if you like. And a very good friend of mine, John Edmonds, of PeopleCert, and previously Axelos, came onto the phone and said, you've got an interest in moving PRINCE2 onwards, haven't you? And I thought, well, there's a leading question. So I said, I might have. And he sort of, from that point, invited me to participate in picking up a chapter of my choice, of which I thought immediately progress. Don't ask me why, which you probably will.
I'm definitely going to ask you about that. So what was your brief, though, given for the progress chapter? Was it very clear, or was it a little bit sort of like you can make it up as you go along?
I think there were some very clear guidelines. Let's not increase it any more than we can. Let's not throw the baby out with the bathwater, as we say. So I started with an appreciative inquiry into the chapter to check through everything that I thought, as a project manager and program manager of some 30 odd years, do these things make sense, and shall we keep them? And if they do, and we want to do that, great. I'm not going to change stuff that has worked for a long time. The other part of the brief was, there are other things going on in the world right now, and part of other things going on in the world is the inclusion of digital formats, the inclusion of sustainability, which, to be quite honest with you, over my years, I haven't always considered. I hope nobody blames me for the state of the planet too much. So I think those two big things came in. The other thing was, I have a bit of a passion for the agile approaches, shall we say. And I thought, actually, the more I look back over my career, and this is something that the authoring of this chapter did for me, it actually made me reflect on, how on earth did I work, and why did I work like that? And a lot of my projects were, I dare I say, without being big-headed, were successful. Not that they delivered on time and within budget, but they were successful in that the stakeholder engagement and the communication worked. And I think that's probably where my forte lay. So I thought, well, let's stick some slightly different stuff in the chapter that might help traditional project managers overcome some of the difficulties of strict monthly reporting and all of that sort of nonsense. So one thing I do like about Agile, and we'll probably get into this in more detail, is the fact that Agile requires those who are interested in the project to keep themselves up to date with their project, rather than just keep relying on the project manager to feed them information constantly. So I'm a big fan of that. But other than that, it was keep it simple, keep it brief if you can, add in some extra bits. And when I handed over to Andy Murray and the rest of the review team, they would then unpick it and make sense of it, really.
Very cool. And so did you find that you were interacting with many of the other authors to ensure that there was you involved, like the New People chapter, for example, that Joe Lucas created, and those sorts of things?
Yeah, it was quite interesting. I'd never participated in a sort of group authorship before. And one of the things I found very, very useful was the fact that we had our weekly or maybe bi-weekly online sessions, and we exchanged information. We heard what people were putting into their chapters. We were able to look at some of that stuff so that we could craft our chapters around what they were also putting into their chapters, so that we didn't, I hope we haven't been as repetitive as previous versions have been.
Yep. And I guess there might have been a bit of a rub-off on some of the suggestions or inclusions. Was there anything in particular that sort of came to the forefront? I know I was talking to Tanya, and she said she was quite surprised about Brad's insistence that work breakdown structures was so exciting. Is that common experience? What's your...
Well, that particular experience, I agree with entirely. Yeah, Brad is uncommonly happy with work breakdown structures. Don't get me wrong. Work breakdown structures are good. I'm definitely going to applaud that. Um, I think there were certain bits and pieces which came through, and I think particularly from the plans section of the book that resonated with me. I was asked a while back, why did you pick up the progress chapter? Have you got a passion for it? And I remember answering that and saying, no, I don't think I've got a passion for it. And by the time I'd finished writing the chapter, I thought maybe I have actually, and I just had this sort of covert passion for it. But it's all based on a couple of things, and one of them is something that has always irritated me when talking to any project manager about the word progress. The first thing they land on is reporting. And I have never considered progress to be reporting. Reporting is a byproduct of progress, surely. If you can't actually monitor what you're doing, find out where you are, then how on earth do you create a report in the first place? So that was, I think, possibly you can tell by now I'm on a soapbox. So I have a bit of a passion for that. The second thing is something that my late father said to me so long ago that it was before you were born. And he said to me, Richard, if you haven't got a map, how do you know where you are? And that has stuck with me all my life, particularly through project management. My map is my plan, and my plan then turns itself into a schedule of activities, tasks, events, milestones, budgets, resources, all sorts of things. All of which, if you have them mapped out reasonably well, then leads you to be able to carry out some sort of monitoring and metrics on it. And if you can measure it, you can manage it up to a point. It allows you to then exert certain controls. If you get into a sticky situation, you can invoke what you do with issue resolution or whatever. And I think from that, I suddenly realized towards the back end of the chapter that I spent my life herding sheep without any Wellington boots on. And I'd done it in what transpired to be an agile style within a traditional set of projects. Hence me including agile bits and pieces into the chapter. So all in all, if I come back to the original question I was asked, do I have a passion for this? Sadly, I think I probably do.
I know. Earlier today, when I was doing a presentation about PRINCE2 version 7, thanks for coming along to what is a really exciting update to what can be a kind of a boring thing, but it's a really exciting update. And so I think this whole project management stuff, yeah, like you say, sadly you're actually quite passionate about it, but you put that to the average Joe blogs, and they kind of they start to yawn a bit, don't they?
They do.
I want to go back to the first point, though. You said there's 2 points there. The first point is the fact that reporting is a byproduct. Tell me what's before that then. Tell me, if reporting is a byproduct, tell me what you do to get the reports. Tell me what we should be doing. Because reporting is the main thing, I think, that people go, oh, I've got to make sure I do reports. And actually, they probably got to do something else other than the report. So tell them what to do.
Oh, absolutely. We have, as you know, chapters on change. We have chapters on risk management and resourcing and people and sustainability and all of those good things. And all of those elements have to come together when you measure where you are and monitor where you are in against your plan in order for you to then be able to garner the data to put together in to complete a report of whatever sort you might want to complete. So it is a constant monitoring of progress. It's floor walking, talking to the various um, uh, team managers, team members, even having to talk to your board members. Good Lord, if they will only talk to you. They can be some of the most difficult characters to get to, by the way. Also, talking to the business and the business layer. The more you can get out there and talk to people, the more you find out exactly where you are in relation to your map. Um, and then you can start to compile a picture of that snapshot of where you are against your map, against your plan, and provide that information, hopefully sort of decision ready information, so that the board members can look at it, make a decision on things in a relatively short time, so that you can keep the ball rolling and keep your project on track. So it's a combination of knowing where you are, what's going on, who is doing what, and keeping your finger on the pulse of your project. There's a huge amount to do in order to garner the information to be able to report on it.
And I wonder whether gardening that, like you say, you can talk to people, you can find out what they're feeling, and then, but to get the actual data, we're talking. I mean, I'm just going to spitball a few ideas here, just so some project managers can sort of maybe make use of it. They could do surveys, I guess, to find out, how things are going. They can do, if you've got numerical data you can get, such as progress with products delivered and product and quality reviews completed. One example I've got, which I think is maybe a measure, but not the ideal measure, was I did some work with the UN, and the way they were measuring their progress was whether they'd spent the budget. Have we spent the money that we said we'd spend? And that was their progress measurement.
It would be for them, without a doubt. They the project board members, the sponsor or executive, will have been tasked with that as one of their quality measures, probably within their mandate for the project, which is fine for them. I would need to report on that because it is a requirement. The various police forces, police authorities I've worked with in the UK also have something very similar, which I've always found slightly odd. But hey, if that's what the customers ask for, that's what the customer gets. But beyond that, there's stuff that I need to know. Yes, of course, I need to know whether we're on track with our budget. But I also need to know, have we produced the product outputs or deliverables that we're supposed to have produced by now? Have we spent the sort of amount of resource that I'm expecting to expend getting to this point? Have we got a mounting number of issues which could indicate that there's things going on and not being corrected? Have we actually done enough risk management? Have we got issues landing on my doorstep, which we really, if we'd thought about it, we should have captured as risks before we started, or before we started this particular stage? So I'm looking at this whole thing about monitoring and control from a slightly different perspective from my customer. Is that correct? I think it probably is. There are a lot of things in life where one person has to have a particular perspective in order to carry out their role, whereas another person has a different perspective in order to carry out theirs. I'm thinking potentially if you look at sales versus finance as departments within an organization, sales are going to go out, as hard and fast as they can, particularly in the current economic environment, to be able to capture sales and drive revenue and hopefully drive growth. And there's finance sitting at the back, and I'm not being disparaging. That was my background, so I'm allowed to say this. There's finance sitting at the back saying, steady on, are you actually going to make a margin out of this? So they have two different perspectives. Neither are wrong. And therefore, I think part of progress is all about that. And, nothing about it is wrong. It's just different perspectives and different requirements.
So tell us about the significant changes in the progress chapter. What's the significant changes we should be aware of? Give us the rundown.
I think one of the significant changes is the introduction of the mention of digital data to begin with. We didn't make enough of it in previous versions, I think reasonably, because back then we didn't have the sort of platforms and systems that we do now, where we can capture information and use it for our monitoring and reporting purposes. The only thing I would say about that is that you need some sensible structure around your application or system in order to capture the information, the data, I should say, in a format that you can use readily. If you don't, and you have project managers inputting data into your system in slightly different ways, it's a very, very difficult thing to then bring that data together automatically without having to, as I put it, knife and fork it into a digestible state. So yes, big data and digital is lovely, but you've got to have some sensible structure around it. Otherwise, if I go back to that ancient phrase, garbage in, garbage out, is exactly what you get. So we had to raise the awareness that we now have systems around us which require us to use digital information. We also have to be aware that what we do makes a difference to what goes on around us and what goes on around our planet. And that's a big, big problem that we have been storing up for ourselves for quite a long time now. And hopefully we will do something to turn a corner. Yes, I don't want to get too morbid about it, but I have a horrible feeling that humans aren't that intelligent, actually. And there's an interesting thing for AI to sort out. So there's a couple of things. We need to think about sustainability. We need to think about how we build things, even internal processes that we might put together for a particular internal project within our organizations. Are we doing things the right way? And could we do it slightly more sustainably and potentially eco-friendly in many respects? Waste is appalling, and we want to try and cut that out. So we need to think through that as well. So sustainability is important. And I suppose the third thing that that I've brought into the chapter are some of the techniques used in Agile. Agile has some super things about how do you demonstrate control. And one of the things it does, it says, and it doesn't matter which Agile approach you use, they are all much of a muchness with this. Whether it be Scrum, whether it be Agile PM, whether it, the DSDM approach, whether it be SAFe, or any of the others as far as that goes. And one of the things that Agile does is it says, make everything visible, make it transparent, so that communication about what's going on is so much easier. And I've always thought that's a great idea. In my day, I was allowed to stick my project plans on a wall near where I used to sit, well, wherever I could sit. And I'd sort of have this big block plan and tick stuff off. And if somebody wanted to ask me a question about it, excuse me, there it was on the wall, and I can use it a bit like a trainer uses a PowerPoint slide. I'll point to stuff and talk it through. So it was sort of, I'm big into visual management. So the whole concept of having a team board, either a physical one, which gets updated, in plain sight when you do a daily stand-up, because I mentioned those as well. Or you could have an electronic one. I've worked with the Unipart group of companies for many years, was employed by them for a good few years as well. And their IT team, they have a daily stand-up. They have multi-sites. They do it in front of a big board and a big screen. And one of them is charged with keeping this up to date with up-to-date information. And it works. It absolutely works. I've been a bystander watching this. So I like that. I recognize the digital age is here. So I also recognize that a physical board isn't always the thing, that we are a distributed population, and that, the electronic world is amongst us, and we should be using that as well. I did mention daily stand-ups. They've come into the book. I don't see a reason why you can't have some form of daily stand-up in a traditional project. Maybe you don't need it daily as such, but you could have frequent stand-ups, shall we call it, and give people a chance to explain where they are, what they've done since the last stand-up, what they're going to do by the next stand-up, and if there are any impediments, so any risks or issues that they've encountered. So we do this naturally as human beings when we're chatting to people. So I think bringing the daily stand-up style into a traditional method, such as PRINCE2 version 7, I think is the right thing to do. I've also introduced a little bit about burn charts. In Agile, they use them. They either call them a burn up or a burn down chart. They basically show the same thing. One is the inverse of the other. But basically, you plot over a graph the number of products you are going to produce over a period of time. And you either start with the maximum number of products, and then you burn them down to the minimum, or you flip it the other way around, and then you mark off against that chart how many products you've done by that date, and it's just such a simple way of demonstrating progress and demonstrating a degree of control. So I think, excuse me, I think if I come back to the whole thing about what's progress, it's not just reported. I think in amongst all of that, you can see that I've sort of landed on a report at the end. I've landed on a team board, if you like to call it that. But the content of those things has actually come from humans discussing where they are and evidencing where they are. Because the other thing is, I'm not a daft project manager Just because somebody tells me something doesn't always make it absolutely accurate. I'm going to be careful with my words there. So I will always want evidence for, you know, how did you get to that conclusion? Um, when you say you produced 4 of these things, could you show me, please? Can I see some evidence of the testing output or the review that was held or whatever? So I'm not a sucker when it comes to that. But I think humans, if you treat them properly and communicate with them properly, um, most of them don't go to work to make a mess. Most of them go to work to do a reasonably good job. And if you've come across Daniel Pink, you know what motivates people. I think he's got it absolutely right with his AMP, autonomy, mastery, and purpose. And if you provide people with a bit of each of those, I think what you see is a growth in people. And if you grow your people within your team and outside your team, I think your life as a project manager also gets easier as well.
Yeah, I've seen that Dan Pink video you mentioned, animation. It's pretty good. It's pretty awesome. And I'll include a link, or send out a link to everyone about that too, because it's pretty inspiring. Now tell me, you're talking about some of those supporting techniques. Did you get lots of input from the community? Did you get people saying, "Hey, why don't you include this? Why don't you include that? Can you get this out?" Was there, how much communication was there from the audio, from the, you know, the gathered data to suggest what you should or shouldn't include?
I've got a couple of mates. I know it's quite surprising. I do actually have a couple of mates. Who,
Just a couple?
well, the trouble is, if you get me going on this, I sound a bit like an anorak, and I'll go for a beer with these 2 ex-colleagues of mine who are equal anorak. The minute they heard that, and by the way, you know, I apologise to people, sir, for my non-disclosure in disclosing to those 2, but asked them to keep it stum. And when I disclosed that I was writing this chapter, oh my word, I went for a couple of beers with them fairly quickly, and they started telling me everything that was wrong with the whole of the PRINCE2 manual. And I was like, whoa, 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 whoa. All I'm doing is having a look at the progress chapter, okay? If you've got anything else, then feed it to Andy Murray, please. But we did talk. One of them is an agilist, as I call them, and one of them is a sort of a bit like me, a hybrid project manager. We've played with both traditional methods and with agile approaches. And over a couple of beers, we discussed sort of some of the things that we have done in the past that actually were more of an agile nature than they were of a strict humdrum traditional project. I'm making traditional projects sound boring. They're not. They're far from boring. But I thought, I suppose it was them that triggered the things like, well, you know, talk about the team board, Richard, because that's a really good thing. And one of them, a particularly good friend of mine, said one of the things he did as an agile project manager was he used to grab the sponsor and the what PRINCE2 would term as a senior user in other agile methods. They'd be a business visionary or a product owner or someone like that. And they would drag them almost physically to come and stand alongside when a stand-up was going on, and get them to stay quiet. This isn't a time for us to ask questions. After the stand-up, then we'll ask questions. But I want you to watch the update of the team board. I want you to listen to what's going on, because these guys and girls are being absolutely open and honest about what is going on. And you will hear some of the pain in there. And I'm rather hoping at the end of this, they will recognize two things. One, that you bothered to turn up because you have an interest in your own project, which during traditional projects isn't always the case. And two, you have a concern about their concerns. And I liked that. I really did, because it's something I think I probably thought about, but not thought that deeply about. And when he expressed it in those terms, I thought, you're absolutely right. That is the sort of thing that we need in our lives to ensure that those at the sponsorship level actually participate actively in their projects. Now, I know it's difficult to get a main board member of an organization, a C level, if you like, to sort of drag them out of their office downstairs into the solution, in amongst the solution developers, for them to stand and listen for, what could be 10, 15 minutes or whatever. But it's 10 or 15 minutes which become incredibly valuable. And he said that after a while, what he found was that they were coming of their own accord. And that impressed me.
Yeah.
Because I thought, why did they do that? Do they not trust your reporting? At which point he coughed and spluttered into his pint a bit, and said, I sincerely hope not. But he said, I think it was much more that they could hear stuff firsthand. They didn't have to wait for me to write a monthly report to them or whatever. And they were just picking stuff up and gauging the size and complexity of their own project, and then realizing why the plan and the expanse of the plan and the schedule were as they were. So, yes, I suppose I was driven to put daily stand-ups into that, not just because I looked back and thought, well, I did some of that, but because he was very passionate about it. So outside influence, I'm afraid I was influenced by somebody.
That's all right. I also thought that there might have been a collection from the various public, and that you'd maybe been given a bit of a brief on what they all thought. But it's good to hear that there was people close to you who could. And now, what other methods? I know you talked about Agile. Can you give us any examples of the way, a little bit like you've just said, there's an example of where you've experienced something or someone's experienced something and it has influenced and caused you to make a change. I think those are quite valuable for people to hear, and that is that, well, it was in this project, we did it this way, and that then has been fed in. And I think that's like the lessons learned effectively that we're getting from your extensive experience.
Yeah, I think, as I said right at the start, I read through the chapter from version 6 just to make sure that what was in there was valid. And I think a lot of it was. And if you compare the version 7 with the version 6 chapter, there are quite a lot of things in there that are similar. I think one of the things that I was asked to introduce the concept of looking into the future, and I did. Andy Murray and I had a chat about it, and I sort of suggested that we are sort of crystal ball gazers, really, when we are trying to run our projects, because there are so many variables which you just can't get your head around right at the start of the project, and then sadly they come to light as you go down the road. But I think the whole thing about forecasting, yes, of course, it was mentioned in the previous version, but we discussed what forecasting was, how we did it, the more I sort of had a quick look at forecasting, and I did talk to my my colleagues and friends, and said, yeah, how do you do forecasting and what? And it's very interesting. There are a number of different ways that people look at forecasting. One of my friends said, when I do a forecast, the first thing I look at, and this comes back to the point you made about your client saying, where are you against your budget? The first thing that he always did was forecast on the finances, whereas I never did that. I always forecasted on what is left to go and what's left to be done. So immediately that sort of sparked a very interesting conversation. How did you get to your financial figure at the end, versus why on earth do I look at what's got to be done when you haven't got a clue how much money you've got left? And that was a really interesting conversation we had. So I think it all depends. How is the organization looking to spend its money in a wise way, which we all have to do nowadays, because cash does not grow on trees. And how does it know that it's investing in its future sensibly? Because that's what your forecast, plus the forecast of every other initiative running in the organization, when put together, that's what the organization has to look at when they come to pull the accounts together to see whether they are actually going to either make a profit this year, or spend money in the right place to move the organization into a position where it needs to be, strategically speaking. And I've always worked on the premise that the money falls out of my initial investigation about what I've got left to do. How many bodies have I got to do this? What is the cost of the purchase materials and purchase services and those sorts of things? Then I'll build up a number at the end. But it was interesting that he started with the number and then sort of worked backwards. So two very different ways of looking at forecasting. But Andy was quite right. We needed to put a little bit more about how we look into our future as a project manager and how we do our forecasting.
And tell me, one of the things that a lot of participants sort of struggle with and to get to grips with on training courses is tolerances. And of course, tolerances is your wheelhouse, right? So,
it is.
Tell us about some common sort of descriptions you would give, or ways that you describe tolerances that, cost tolerances are fine. They're usually pretty straightforward. They're just 10%. We all know they've got to be 10%. But
well, with the exception that I tend to explain that you need to profile your tolerances across your project. So let's take the situation where the business layer allows the board a 10% tolerance on their total project. If I were to put 10% on my first stage, which might be some investigation, it's me as a project manager plus maybe a business or technical analyst doing an investigation and coming up with something ready to do the next stage. I probably don't want 10% tolerance on that. I know my costs, I know my business analyst costs, and the costs of some other little bits and pieces. So putting 10% against that is probably overkill. When I get to the build or construction phase of my project, that's when stuff starts to go wrong. That's when the minor deviations come in. So I'll want more than 10% tolerance for that particular stage or phase. So what I tend to do is I ramp up and ramp down my tolerances for cost, so long as the total doesn't exceed the 10% for the whole project. Then I've profiled it properly, and I've given myself elbow room to be able to deliver my project without having to keep inundating the board with requests for minor stuff. They don't want to hear this. They want me to get on with doing my job. That's what they pay me for. So cost tolerance, yes, a simple one, but applied properly can actually make your life and your board's life so much easier. And again, time tolerance, similar sorts of things. When the difficult patch is going to come, so you'll build an extra piece of time tolerance into that. I think you're right. They're two easier ones to explain. If I would come to a tolerance on quality, again, not a particularly difficult concept. Because you state a level of quality and then you say, okay, from that level of quality, do I have any movement either side of it? I give an example, or I always have done, of the difference between a customer's quality expectation and acceptance criteria. So a customer's quality expectation may be, Richard, would you build me a car that goes quite quickly and is red, please? Now, okay, I'm sort of in the right ballpark. I know it's not a ship. I know it's not a plane or a train or a truck. It is a car. But that's about it. What I now need to do is nail down with some certainty what this thing is that I've got to build. And I might sort of start off by saying, when you say a car, how many wheels do you want on that? Is it 3 or 4? And they say, heaven's sake, I want it to go quite quickly, so it's got to be 4 wheels, surely. You get a Reliant Robin and you get it over sort of 40 miles an hour and then turn the wheel, it'll turn over on itself. What sort of project manager are you loon? Then I'll go, okay, so it's got 4 wheels, and I'll explain, the reason I say that is 4 wheels are measurable. I can walk around it and count 4. It's, I can even do it on one hand. Hey, that's not difficult stuff. And I can tick that off. When you say goes quite quickly, what do you mean? 0 to 60 miles an hour in how long? 4.3 seconds. Wow, that's actually quite quick. Okay. Getting a vehicle to go from 0 to 60 in exactly 4.3 seconds is incredibly difficult to do. So now I'll come to some quality tolerance. And now I'll say, okay, if that's 4.3 seconds, if I can get it to get to 0 to 60 between 4.1 and 4.5 seconds, would that be acceptable to you? Now, most Joes in the street would go, yeah, that's fine. Right? It's different. If you're talking to a Formula One racing driver, they would tell you the difference before they'd even looked at their clock. So that's how I start to introduce quality tolerance. It's give me a specification and then give me something either side of it, or even one side of it or the other side of it, that allows me to be able to build something to your approval, if you like, and your that is acceptable to you. So those sorts of things are reasonably easy. I think the chapter on risk explains risk tolerance really well, by the way. I like that. How much risk appetite is an organization willing to take, and in particular this project, because projects are delivered in all sorts of different ways, different contexts, different backgrounds, and sometimes you have to be risk averse, particularly if you're in the construction industry, when it comes to personal protection equipment and what you do and don't do on a building site. So you've got to be really careful. Human life and limb is important. Whereas look at the other end of the scale. If you are replacing a procedure in a back office, does it really matter if that procedure doesn't quite go according to plan when you've got the old procedure running alongside it? And the answer to that is probably not really. So we can afford to take more risk there. Yeah, scope tolerance. Now, this is an interesting one because we do enjoy a little bit of an ability to employ scope tolerance slightly more in an agile project than we do in a traditional project, and we deal with scope changes in a slightly different way. If it's a change to some detail in depth, we leave it to the team to work out whether that was sensible, and if it is, then what doesn't get completed in this time frame, whether it be a time box or a sprint. And that's absolutely fine. I mean, obviously, if it's a change to something major, so we have a must-have coming in which we didn't have before, then that's something for the project level, the sponsor and the product owner to then have to make a decision on. And again, they have to then work out what gets jettisoned from the project in order to fit that sort of thing in. So there is change control in Agile before everybody rushes off and says, "Ooh, Agile, it's great. You don't have to plan it. You don't have to have change control." Oh, yes, you do. So I quite like those sorts of things, and I like the scope tolerance. And believe it or not, PRINCE2 has had in its manual all the way through, pretty much all the way through, the whole concept of prioritizing your requirements and therefore prioritizing your scope. It's just that it seems to be one of the things that in traditional projects we've sort of forgotten along the way. I never did forget it, which is why I think I made probably a better agile project manager than a traditional project manager at times, because I'd always ask what's important, what matters to you, what could I leave out if push came to shove and we were up against it. List this stuff down, put a number 1 to 4 against it or 1 to 5 against it, so that I can say, actually, these 2 things at the bottom here are not going to get delivered. And if you do that at the beginning of the project, as part of your discussion about tolerances, when you come to have to do it, because undoubtedly you will, it stops being an argument and becomes just a point of discussion, because they have participated in putting the tolerances together in the first place. And I think that's a really important place to be with your stakeholder engagement and with your communication. If you do stakeholder engagement and communication properly, your project will always run more smoothly, because it doesn't matter whether you're running a project or a program or even a piece of continual improvement. Humans are always involved, and the whole thing needs to have stakeholder engagement, communication wrapped around it. People have passions and prejudices, they have likes and dislikes, and they have all sort of preferences and goodness knows what. And if you can sort of latch on to them, then it makes life so much easier. Apart from that, benefit tolerance, giving them a view as to how good or how bad the project is likely to run out. So, that they can take a view at that point. Should we continue with this project or not? Or do we need to bend it in a different direction because strategically things might have changed? So that gives them a view on that. And of course, sustainability. That's, I think, my last tolerance that I've got in there. When I say last, I'm beginning to think I probably should have put it somewhere near the top. It's not at the bottom because it's an afterthought at all. I just went through the list and added it to it. It is equally important. The thing with sustainability, I'll be able to say that at about 9 o'clock when I've had another coffee. The thing with sustainability is that your project is going to have to work out what the numbers are for sustainability, depending on what it is trying to do. So I can't blandly say, like with budgets, oh, profile this. I can't say that. So what we have to do is work out how do we know we are building something that has sustainability built into it, and we've really thought about it. And when we build into our project, have we also got some touch points in there that allow us to work out, have we done the right thing? Not are we doing things right, because that's audit. That's a sort of a black and white yes or no situation. But are we doing the right things? And I think that's something with sustainability where project assurance could take a much, much bigger role, and should take a much bigger role on behalf of not just the project board and sponsor and the project manager, because they should work alongside the project manager to help them, but also on behalf of the organization as a whole. We all have a responsibility here, and sustainability is whatever is necessary for the project.
That's a very good summary. Thank you for that. I'm sure there's going to be a few people out there going, and it's light bulb moments occurring for them.
I'd like to hope so.
And look, I think we've used up more of your morning, and I want to get you onto your coffee. So I just want to ask you one more thing. Look, could you give us the elevator speech, or the 15-second speech? Why should someone be a project manager?
Wow. I think, really from the heart, rather than from the head, because I think once you've done a couple of projects, you do start to think, why am I doing this? But I think from the heart, I think it's all about wanting to make a change and a difference. If you are somebody who wants to make a difference, wants to make a change, then the place to be is at the heart of the change. It's, dare I sort of say, you keep your friends close, but your enemies closer. But you can't make change unless you are inside the change. So I think at the heart of it, it's that sort of need to help change things is the first thing that you need. The second thing, I think, you need what I call a rhinoceros skin, because there are times when being a project manager can be a bit tortuous. And what I won't do is I won't blame others when I know it's patently my fault for doing something stupid. So you have to have a desire for change, a desire to look at new things with new people, because you don't always work with the same team. And because of that, you've got to learn to get on with people. So you've got to have reasonably good people skills. And so desire for change, desire to work on new things with new people, and be resilient, I think is my last thing. At the end of the day, so long as no life or limb is put in danger, I don't think you should worry quite so much. I've got some greying hairs now, but I think that's due to age rather than worrying about projects. I was very, very lucky. I worked alongside two very senior managers whose daughters, their daughters, had some serious disabilities, and they were always cheerful at work. And I remember saying to them, "How do you do that?" And they both said almost exactly the same thing to me. Well, being at work is a doddle. Being at home is work. And I thought, okay, I've got that. And I think I've sort of applied that to the way I view my work. Being at work is a doddle. We get complications. We get weird stuff happen. But normally our technicians and specialists can get around that for us. And we can normally get around somebody who's being irksome by being sensible. But there are things outside which are far more important and require us to be a lot more emotionally committed than we necessarily have to be for our project. So I would say, don't worry. Just don't worry.
Yep. That sounds like a very good place to end. So thank you so much for that. Now, just so everyone knows, Jenny, our course admin, has asked me if I'll mention a few courses coming up. So if you or your staff are interested in booking on some PRINCE2, Agile, benefits or change management courses, please let us know. We've got a managing benefits starting on the 6th of November, a P3O on the 13th of November, a better business cases on the 20th of November, PRINCE2 version 7 on the 27th. I'm going to be delivering that one, so I'd like to see you all there. Change management on the 11th of December, and another PRINCE2 version 7 on the 18th of December. So they're looking pretty popular. So phone, if you're in New Zealand, 0800 888897, or visit our website. And for those who have registered, a link of this recording of this event will be sent along with the request to provide us with feedback. So again, thank you very much, Richard, for your time. I really do appreciate you coming along and spending your morning with us. So it's an early start, so you can go to bed early. I'll give you that permission.
Thank you very much. I thoroughly enjoyed it, and as you can tell, I can talk for Britain.
That's good. That's the way we like it. So thanks for coming, everyone. We look forward to seeing you at a future event. Ka te whanau. Ciao.